Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy that you're here to join us. We're going to give just a minute or two for everyone in the waiting room to come on into our meeting so that way we can get started here. Happy Monday morning. I'm so excited that you were actually able to get up on Monday and join us and to be able to experience this concert this morning because it was phenomenal. Let's see. All right, I think we're just about ready. We'll get started. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Spivey Hall Presents Breakfast at Wigmore Hall. This morning we had Imogen Cooper give us an amazing performance. And I know you guys are thrilled to go ahead and get to ask a few questions of Sam about the performance. So I will go ahead and turn us over to Sam and let him give you a few words before we get started. In the meantime, if you have any questions that you would like Sam to answer about the performance or anything else, go ahead and put them over in the chat box and I'll be feeding Sam questions as we go. Sam, turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Elise. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Breakfast at Wigmore by way of Spivey Hall. I've got a few faces in front of me, and I see that we have representatives not only from the Metro Atlanta area, but a certain gentleman by the name of Tim has shown up from Brooklyn, and others I'm sure will pop up in just a minute. We've had such a wonderful morning of music from Imogen Cooper, and seeing her face and seeing her play, it just conjures up so many wonderful memories of having Imogen here on stage. And she's supposed to return to us this spring, and of course we certainly hope that can happen, because she's one of those marvelously warm, expressive, emotionally generous musicians who just makes music sound so natural and at the same time so alive. She started off with the Schubert, the Deutschländler, the German dances, which are sort of inspired by these nice little bits of tunes, snippets of German tunes, but they're treated in a very pianistic way. And Schubert, of course, in addition to always singing to us, Schubert is always singing to us. There's a lyricism to all of his writing, but he also goes off in some interesting harmonic directions with those. And it's actually very pianistic, those pieces. You can hear them beginning as a German folk tune, but then they sort of go off into art in wonderful ways. And then the bagatelles. We've heard Imogen play bagatelles by Beethoven here, most recently the set from Opus 126. These are earlier, and as the presenter, Georgia Mann, I think suggested, there was an earlier set and then a later set of this Opus 119. And Beethoven at this time was constantly writing music of all sorts, not all of which got published, as she acknowledged. And I was reading through sort of a chronology of what was happening at the time he was writing these. And Beethoven was in constant correspondence with various publishers, playing one against the other, trying to sell this, trying to sell that, trying to do this, trying to do that. He's writing a lot of small things, what we lovingly call a woo. A woo, W-O-O, means a Werke ohne Opus, which means a work without opus number. So there's all these woos going on in addition to the creation of the Ninth Symphony and the C major Mass and these wonderful, almost titanic late piano sonatas. So it's interesting that Beethoven had so many different levels of creativity going on at once, and that he was so active. Of the earlier, the first five were the earlier ones, and there's this beautiful one, the third one, in D major, à l'Allemande, and it's lovely. It's with this rising D major arpeggio, and it goes way up into the high register, and it just sounds so sweet. And at that moment, I'm always reminded that Imogen Cooper is the consummate cultivator of piano tone. I cannot underscore this too much. Imogen is someone who is constantly fashioning, sculpting, refining, really concerned with pianistic tone. And there are so many ways to play Schubert, there are so many ways to play Beethoven, but Imogen was a very talented young musician, and her father was a musicologist. And at the age of 12, she was sent to Paris to study, and 5 years later, she was awarded a first prize in piano from the Conservatoire Supérieur, and then went off to study with various people in Vienna. and several, she had many teachers along the way, but Alfred Brendel made a particular influence on her. So I feel that she is someone who was trained in a school of piano playing that is essentially from the French Romantic school, and that possibly may inform her sense of tone. But at the same time, she has an intellectual curiosity that is constantly seeking to learn. And that sense of discovery in her playing is also something I marvel at every time. Lastly, we had this beautiful late Beethoven sonata. It's certainly my favorite of the last three, which sometimes get played Opus 109, Opus 110, Opus 111 as a program. And it was written in 1821, and I was not surprised to learn when I went into this chronology that Barry Cooper had put together in something he calls the Beethoven Compendium, that this sonata was written in the spring and summer. To me, that makes perfect sense. It is a spring summer. It's like a positive. There's a lot of light in this work, and it opens with such a deep expression of love. And our presenter, Georgia Mann, stumbled over the Italian just a little bit. But in addition to, molto cantabile, moderato cantabile, a moderate singing tempo, and then molto espressivo, very expressive, con amabilità, which means with lovingness. Oh, think of that. Get that into your heart and soul, and then sit down and try to play. There's a lot going on there, but this just tells you how much expressive depth there is to these pieces and how artists have to synthesize all of these thoughts trying to make the music come to life. I was so pleased to hear her play. This piece takes us into extraordinary dimensions, and it has so much to do with feeling, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about feeling in music in just a minute.
Thank you, Sam. I know I enjoyed this. This has probably been my favorite so far of these Breakfast at Wigmore series, and I just very much enjoyed it. So I have a few people that already want to know a few things that you might know. But first of all, I know that Imogen does some great work with young musicians. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Sam?
Yes, Imogen is someone who benefited greatly from intensive work earlier in her career, and she knows that made a critical difference in her life. She has written about that time. The experiences I had of being intensively mentored by Alfred Brendel, Arthur Rubinstein, the Amadeus Quartet, and Clifford Curzon have never left me. Time seemed irrelevant. The sessions had no boundaries, and the immersion in great works with those artists has resonated with me throughout my performing life. So Imogen actually created something called the Imogen Cooper Music Trust, and she takes 4 to 6 musicians away twice a year and takes them away from all distractions, all life. All life is suspended while they concentrate intensively for about a week in a certain piece they're working on, or certain pieces they're working on. And she tries to recreate that intensity and that focus of experience that will really unlock what is in the musicians themselves. Imogen's also someone who has come to the world of social media. I think her management has helped her do this, but also I think she really, really enjoys teaching. Imogen has given master classes here at Spivey Hall, and those have always been splendid. And she started a series of things, posts, actually they're video posts, and they have a hashtag, and she calls them "To My Younger Self." When I worked at the Music Academy of the West in Santa Barbara, and we had 8 weeks of concerts, we also had 5 or 6 master classes going on every day. And from that experience, I came away with such an appreciation for how teaching will, and the act of teaching and the cognitive process and the emotional process of teaching brings out some of the best music making in the teachers, not just the people who are being taught. It makes them remember what they care about and what they feel most deeply about and what they expect of the music making. And here's what, you can find this post online. It's not hard to find. It's a YouTube post. And in it, Imogen says, "Making music is about life. We're expressing life. We're expressing everything that a human being is capable of feeling. But therefore, we have to allow ourselves time to feel it. This is a profession that can knock you around a bit, but you have to find the core of yourself so as to get back to who you are when you are making music and sharing it with other people, which is really what it's all about. And feeling is at the heart of what she's doing here. It's constantly about feeling. And how does one express feeling through this music, through tone, through articulation, through pauses, through nuance? That is her artistry supreme. I so admire it, and I so feed on it. This video was put up, and of course she's addressing it to some of the younger musicians. She's trying to encourage them to find their own way, and she talks about criticism in social media. She also tells them, I was far too cautious in my 20s. You have to go out and play things, even though you may not be entirely confident that they're for you yet, but you need to explore in your 20s. This is something. Well, there was one comment on this post, at least one that I saw yesterday, and the comment was someone who said, very nice advice. Throughout the video, they intersperse Imogen talking in her home, and I've been very privileged to visit her in her home and sit with her having coffee. And they show her making coffee in a little, Bialetti coffee maker, an espresso maker. She puts it on the range and turns it on. And, she's sitting down with a cup of coffee and talking about music. But this comment that was left online was, very nice advice. I do hope the cafetiere is not aluminum. Which is someone being concerned that Imogen's making coffee that may not be, helping her health. So there's no detail spared in the observance of what goes on in mine. But it just amazes me. This is what Imogen says. You put something out on social media, the world sees it, and there's no knowing how people respond to it. But her message about music being life, music being feeling, I'm there all the way. And I'm sure most people are with her as well.
I think that's beautiful. And it's a beautiful way to be able to really grasp the inspiration that comes from all levels of musicianship. And it's a beautiful way to be able to exchange passion. And
truly,
she does that wonderfully, for sure. So another question about Imogen. Often when we see her name, there are a few letters after her name at the end, and it says CBE. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
Oh, yes. CBE is Commander of the British Empire. It's an honor bestowed by the Queen. And this happened, I think, in the early 2000s. I'm not precise about the date, but it's sort of called getting the gong in common parlance. There's different levels of honors that the Queen awards. There's New Year's honors, there's the Queen's birthday honors, but if you enter Imogen's beautiful home, which has a lovely garden in it, and you close the door, you look to your left, there it is, it's framed, is the document that says this is when she was named the CBE, honored with the CBE by Her Majesty. And it's sort of like, yeah, I got it. It's nice to be acknowledged. And it's nice to be, to know that people care about what you're doing. And I can't think of another British pianist of her generation, and particularly, an outstanding pianist and such a deep feeling pianist to emulate her. She is really, really important in the world of music, and particularly, I think, in the world of British music. So that means she's been recognized by Her Majesty, and everybody keeps hoping that someday she'll be made a dame. We keep waiting for her to be made a dame. That might happen someday with any luck.
That's still an amazing honor. I actually did a quick bit of research to see who else had this kind of thing, and I saw that J.K. Rowling and Winston Churchill and David Attenborough. So it's a neat honor.
I once said that, well, let's put it this way. They're in good company with Imogen. Let's put it that way. I once commented to Imogen, and was like, oh, I saw you're appearing with the Cleveland Orchestra, and I says, how lucky you are. And I said, yes, how lucky they are too.
True. It's very true.
No.
Well, what about next time Imogen comes to Spivey? What would you love to hear Imogen play?
Well, we have a program for what Imogen wants to play in March, and we published it when we announced what I'm now calling old season 30. In March, we announced our full 30th anniversary season that included Imogen in March. She tends to come to the US in March or April. So Imogen proposed a program. We had several rounds of back and forth on it, which was wonderful. And then literally about 4 hours before the book was supposed to go to its final version before we sent it to the printers, I got a message from her manager saying, Imogen has the opportunity to make another recording, and could we please change the program? And that was sort of, oh, wow. So I sat down with that right away. And I told our marketing manager, Tammy Moore, hold on, we have to deal with this. But Imogen wanted to come and play, and perhaps she may still come and play. We simply don't know. We just have to wait and see. And we are working towards this possibility, but we're also working towards having something from Imogen remotely if we can't have Imogen here in our presence. But she wants to open with the Schubert G Major Sonata, which is such a beautiful piece, and which we've just recently heard from another wonderful pianist. But then she's going to explore Liszt and Ravel. And I think that's a fascinating combination. We prize Imogen for her Schubert and her Schumann, but she's not limited to those composers by any stretch of the imagination. She's received critical acclaim for her recordings of Ravel and Liszt, and my goodness, she has, you know, certainly the sound and the strength and the grandeur of conception for Liszt, but she's also a beautiful Ravel player. So Schubert, Ravel, Liszt is what we might have. Again, I yearn to hear her Schubert, though, and that's where a lifetime of experience and reflection and, you know, finding the feelings surfaces in her play.
Wonderful. So, of all of the experiences that you have had with Imogen, what's special about getting to spend time with her?
Well, she can talk about so many things. She, of course, is extraordinarily well-versed in music, but I remember one lovely visit we had, and we went out and we had a dinner together. We were at the Atlanta Fish Market, and Imogen opted for lobster. She was ready for some lobster. So we had this wonderful meal. She had lobster. I probably had, you know, sole. I tend to have sole at the Atlanta Fish Market. And our conversation went everywhere. We also once had the opportunity to stroll through the High Museum of Art and look at some paintings. And she is the most remarkable art critic. She has a fantastic eye. And of course, she's so good about articulating what she hears. She's also very good about articulating what she sees. And being able to stroll with her through the High Museum and look at paintings and comment on them and just sort of have that time was really special. I really treasure those moments when someone gives us enough time for us to have that. And Imogen is someone who tries to come to Atlanta several days in advance to really hunker down, to get adjusted to the piano, and to give her best. So I'm hoping that might happen in March.
Wonderful. Well, I think that we're getting to the end of our questions. Does anybody else have other questions that you would like to ask Sam about Imogen Cooper or about the pieces she performed this morning, or Wigmore Hall, Spivey Hall? Sure. All right. Well, Sam, is there anything else that you would like to add about today's performance?
I'm so pleased that people tuned in to hear Imogen play. I hope that music was again the reward. That's always our objective at Spivey Hall, and certainly the BBC Three and Wigmore Hall are doing a fantastic job with this series of lockdown lunchtime concerts. We're coming back, not the end of this week, but towards the end of next week with 2 such breakfast at Wigmore opportunities. Angela Hewitt, another wonderful Spivey Hall favorite, is going to perform on Thursday, and we'll spend time with her. And Angela's put together an amazing program that includes works of many sorts of different lengths. And on paper, it's a little hard to figure out, but I'm sure when one hears it put together, it will make beautiful sense, because Angela is cogent in ways that few people on earth are. And then on Friday, to close this series, we're going to be listening to another masterwork by Schubert, and that is Winterreise, Winter Journey, with Mark Padmore and Mitsuko Uchida. Mitsuko has been to Spivey Hall both as a solo pianist and in concert with a vocalist. But Mark Padmore has not been at Spivey Hall, much to my lament. I've tried many times. So we're getting closer, and this is a way to have Mark Padmore in our ears. He is an extraordinary Schubertian, and therefore I think that promises to be a fantastic climax to this series of June concerts. I hope you all join us, and I thank you all so much for your generosity in supporting us as friends. So many of these people who are listening either now, live in the moment, or coming to us later on demand on YouTube or Facebook Live, you are supporting our future through your generosity, and for that, I am lastingly grateful. So to all the friends, thank you so much. I'd also like to thank you, Elise, and Chris Tolick, our production manager, and Tammy Moore, our marketing manager, for making Breakfast at Wigmore happen again today.
Absolutely. And we thank you, Sam, for being here and, sharing your experiences with us. I know I can listen to you talk about your experiences with artists all day long. So I know that our friends absolutely appreciate this opportunity as well. So thank you for being here. Thank you so much to all of our friends. We're so grateful for your support, always, but especially in times like these. So thanks for joining us, and we hope that you will join us next week for a few more performances. And Sam, again, your insights are greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Elise. Thank you so much for hosting, and we're glad to see you today.
Sounds good. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
We're waving. I see some people waving. I'm going to wave back.
See you next time.
Auf Wiedersehen. Arrivederci. Au revoir. Bye-bye. Next time.